You probably suck at prompt engineering, and in this video, I'm going to tell you why, how you can fix it, and how you cannot be the guy in the middle here of this midwit meme. So that might seem a little bit off topic, but if you give me a second, I'll explain how this applies to the majority of people who are trying to do prompt engineering and build AI systems, and why it's probably holding you back because you're stuck in this midwit range. So if you haven't seen this meme before, basically the low IQ people and the high IQ people kind of converge on the same solution, as you see here. So we have the guy using Apple Notes on one side and the genius using Apple Notes on one side. And in the middle, you have the midwit who's overcomplicating it and making it very difficult and painful for themselves. And then we have the same thing with Nescafe Classic on both sides. And in the middle, we have the midwit struggling with all these different types of coffee and fancy methods. So how does this apply to prompt engineering? I know you're asking, considering you clicked on a video that's about prompt engineering, but it's actually a not so bell curve when it comes to prompt engineering. And on the far left, we have the stupid person who is just using ChatGPT and prompting it as they wish, kind of just throwing things in there. On the far side, we have what we're trying to get you to after this video, which is a genius who has a toolkit of prompts and understands the science behind it. And in the middle, we have probably you right now, which is, no disrespect to these other YouTubers, because I've made videos on prompt engineering myself. Like I'm part of the problem here. But what these are all about is ChatGPT prompt templates and sort of taking the thinking away from you and putting it in the hands of this template that they've created. So I'm not going to shit on my videos too much because these videos were talking more conceptually as well. So I'd say I'm on that line, and the content of this presentation in this video is intended to take you from this plateau of someone trying to do prompt engineering but not actually understanding the science behind it, which is what we're going to go into this video. The point of this video is to take you from someone who's on that plateau, as you can see here, and get you up to the sort of genius and very capable prompt engineer who's able to do great things with these language models. And it's so important because your ability to prompt them and provide instructions to these models directly impacts your ability to get value out of them. So if there's this amazing new technology called LLMs and you're better at using them, you're going to go further in the AI space and further in life if you can better send instructions to these models. So continuing on, you may be wondering, hey, why is this new style? Why is the camera on the different side? Why is everything so casual? And that's because I've been not wasting, but I've been spending a lot of time on my videos the past while. As you may have noticed, some of you people starting to think that I'm a YouTuber. And I've never really thought of myself as a YouTuber personally. I'm a businessman, and YouTube is how I get clients for my business. And I think you guys are starting to see me as a YouTuber. And I really, as much as I love making videos and teaching you guys everything, what I really like doing is working on my business and working with my team and building the cool software that we're building through Agentive and working on the morning side, and also the cool stuff we do with my education community as well, and teaching them how to start their own businesses like I am. So probably less fancy videos that require a lot of time and editing and blah. If I have anything interesting to share and I want to talk about it, like in this video, because this video is coming out of me seeing so many people that I talk to in my community not understanding this fundamental skill, and it is so fundamental, but people have this misconception that they know how to do it, which I'm going to break, like just absolutely destroy for you in this video, and rebuild your skills as a prompt engineer. So I'm doing this because if I have something to talk to you about and I think it's important for you all, then I'm going to share it. And also, you may be wondering, why do I do this at all? And it's because I have a SaaS, and it helps AI agency owners to build AI solutions for businesses. So if I don't teach you guys how to do prompt engineering, you're never going to use my SaaS. So I have to do this stuff so that I can succeed and make all the money with the SaaS that I want. So you guys get a byproduct of me trying to build my SaaS, which is helping you to learn these things. So anyway, on to the next. So why you're probably bad at prompt engineering. Conversational prompt engineering versus single shot. Conversational is what everyone thinks is prompt engineering. And they go onto ChatGPT and they go, hey, yeah, I got this cool prompt template, and they chuck it in there. And they can get some responses from it, and they're like, man, I'm so good at this. And then they switch off and think that they're a prompt engineer and they know how to do this stuff. This, of course, is human operated. There are follow-up prompts that you can do. So you can say, oh, could you please modify this a little bit? And because of these follow-up prompts, it's very forgiving in terms of what you can say and how you can tweak it to get the right responses. And this really is just good for personal use if you're working at a job and you might want to streamline some of the workflow that you do there. Great. ChatGPT is an incredible software, and I use it all the time as well. So I'm not shitting on it, but it is conversational prompting. And on the other side is single shot prompting, which is something that we can actually bake into a system that can be automated and can be part of a sort of ongoing system or flow where an AI task is embedded in it. There are no follow-up prompts because there's no human involved in most cases. There's no room for error in that case. You can't have ChatGPT putting, hey, here is the answer, and then put in the answer. It just needs to give you the answer every single time or the system's going to break. And because of this, because if we can prompt it into something that is reliable, we can actually have a very scalable system that has AI built into it, which is ideal for these AI assisted systems. And this is really how you can create value. So the benefit of conversational prompting skills, which many of you will have, I'm sure, is that it might make you better at your job and might make your boss a bit more money because you're able to do more work. Maybe make you a bit more money on the process. But the benefit of these single shot systems, where we can build an AI task to do a specific function every single time reliably, is that it will allow you to build AI systems worth potentially thousands of dollars a piece, as I've done, as many people in my community have done as well. If you don't believe me, I don't care. Furthermore, on this point of why you should take prompt engineering seriously, Andre Karpathy here says the hottest new programming language is English. And this is no dummy. He is a founding member of OpenAI. He's also a leading AI researcher. What he means here by saying the hottest new programming language is English is that you being able to write instructions in English is going to allow you to, one, generate code if you want to, so you can translate from English to code. That's one way of programming in English technically. But another way is that if you can write effective prompts, you can replace the programming required with a massive program or a massive script. You can write a prompt that effectively does all of the things that script would have done. So you can replace large blocks of code with a well-written prompt now, which is really what I want you guys to focus on. Say like, well, I can have the abilities of a developer if I can write these prompts well, using LLMs properly. And furthermore, this guy, Liam Ottley, I've founded a couple AI companies. I have my own AI agency, Morningside AI. I have my own AI education community, my AAA accelerator. And I also have a software, my AI SaaS called Agentive, which is really what my focus is on right now. And I've got some pretty smart people working for me. I'm not the brains of the operation anymore. I hope I was at one point, but my CTO, Spencer, is like 5-6 years of NLP experience, and he does some really cool stuff for us. And a lot of what I'm going to be sharing in this, in terms of how you should be doing your prompt engineering and what I've learned and what I now use, is from him. So you might think I'm just some goofball who's been doing YouTube for 12 months. But I do have teams, and I've paid people who are a lot smarter than me to give me this knowledge. So now I'm giving it to you. So now I want you to remember this. A well-written prompt can replace hundreds of lines of code. Going back to what I said before, this is, I think it's my quote, but I'm just going to say someone said it because someone must have said it. But that's essentially what you can do if you write a well-written prompt. Now here's an example. So there's a video that will have just gone out recently on my channel where I manage my finances with AI. I set up a system where my assistant can send money, can send screenshots, these things here, through the system, and out comes the other side, a tracker for all my expenses within my Notion. It automatically extracts the transactions from the screenshots, categorizes them, stores them in my expense database within the Notion. And this is kind of the system here. You can pause and take a look. But basically, so it took me 2 hours to write a very good prompt that can successfully categorize, format, and then pass the data over to Notion. And that's ended up saving 8 hours per month for my system. So example there, not the best one, but you get the idea. If you write a good prompt, you can replace what would have taken, like for me to do this expensive system with code would have taken a whole lot longer, and it would have been extremely messy. But the AI can just throw all the information at it, say, hey, look, this is what I want you to do with it. And out comes the transactions ready to go into Notion. And no, we're still not ready to move forward, because you need to understand that if you can just get this skill right, that many people don't have correct. They think they can do conversational prompt engineering, and that's going to be enough for them to go on and build these systems. But in AI voice systems, which are all the rage right now, I've done a ton of videos on them. You can go watch them on my channel. AI voice systems. If you can't prompt correctly, if you don't have good prompt engineering skills, you can't do AI voice systems. If you don't have good prompt engineering skills, you can't create AI agents like GPTs. If you don't have good prompt engineering skills, you can't build AI's tasks into AI automations like on Zapier and Make, etc. And you can't build custom AI tools on Relevance and Stack AI and these other platforms. So if you can't just get this thing right and watch the rest of this video, it's not going to be a retention hooky and for your TikTok brain. I don't care if you watch the rest of it, but I'm telling you, if you don't take the time to actually soak in this information I'm about to tell you and get good at this prompt engineering skill, you are not going to make any money in AI, because everything depends on it. And finally, what I want to do is a little comparison of the two different types of people you can be. You can either watch this video and come out on the right side here, or you can continue to do your whatever you think you're doing when you're prompt engineering, and you can be like the guy on the left. So guy on the left, the midwit, he has a handy bag of prompt templates. He gets stuck when something doesn't work because he doesn't understand what the template's even doing. So then he uses a more expensive and a smarter model, like he moves from 3.5 turbo to 4 turbo. And he goes, oh yeah, well, now it works, because he gets the models to do the work instead of himself. So by doing this, he creates slower and more expensive systems. And therefore, he struggles to create systems that are actually valuable for the clients, because if it's costing them a lot and they're really slow, there's less value for the client, right? And then number 6, he gives up on trying to start an AI business and get into this AI solution space. And then, like some of you guys in the comments, they become a triple A as a scam goofball and blame it on the model and not your inability to learn how to write English. And then on the right, we have the guy that you want to be. He has a toolkit of prompt components and methods based on research, which I'm going to take you through in this video. He approaches problems like an engineer. He skillfully applies these techniques. He achieves the desired performance with fastest and cheapest model available. So he uses the cheapest model he can get and uses his skills to make it do what he needed to do. Therefore, he's able to create lightning quick and affordable AI systems for clients that create actual value because they're cheap and they're fast. And then therefore, he actually makes money because these clients are like, wow, this thing is awesome. And number 7, this guy then finds other AI chads like him who know how to do prompt engineering and are making money with AI. And with him and his friends, they all get AI rich. Yes, I'm selling you the dream there. But that is what's possible if you can get this thing right. And that is what myself and a bunch of the other guys that I was just in Amsterdam with, they're all doing it. It's happening, whether you like it or not. So be like this guy. Don't be like this guy. Yeah, there you go. So now we get into the perfect prompt formula for building AI systems, which is the meat and potatoes of this video. Beware of the prompt formula. As I mentioned, you don't want to be the guy who relies on the formula. And while I am giving you a formula in this video, I've put it in asterisks and used capital letters so that you understand that I'm kind of taking the piss out of formulas, because what I'm teaching you in this is going to be the science behind them. So that you guys, if you run into an issue, you'll understand, hey, look, I can apply this technique to try and fix it. So you'll actually be able to write good prompts forever if you understand the stuff I'm going to teach and you actually absorb it. So components of this prompt are role, task, specifics, context, examples, and notes. And behind each of these components is a related scientific paper or some research that has been done or some prompting technique that has been discovered and backed up with a research paper that you can see on screen here. We have role prompting, chain of thought prompting, emotion prompt, few shot prompting, and lost in the middle. All of these are going to be covered in the next section of this video. So let's jump into it. Before we do that, actually, what each of these techniques have is a increase in accuracy or performance for prompts. And I'm going to retention hook you here with all these question marks, because over time we're going to reveal just how much performance improvements you can get. So if you stack all of these up together, you get an increase in performance on your prompt. Just a lot of these are very easy to implement, but you're going to get a massive increase. I'm not going to tell you how much it is, but a huge increase just by applying these simple techniques. So we're going to be using an example for this video, which is an email classification system. And the AI task here in the middle is where we're going to be sending our prompt. And in this case, it's going to be someone comes onto someone's website, they fill out a form, that form then gets sent, the form submission gets sent by email to the company, the CEO or the ops guy to his email, and he gets it, and he normally has to read through it and then classify it and take action from there. But what we're going to be doing is imagining a system where there is this AI task or this AI node in make.com or whatever you want to use, where the email comes in and then it's going to be classified using our prompt into opportunity, needs attention, or ignore labels. So super basic system I wanted to use as an example here. Well, let's get into it. We're going to be building up a prompt over time of how we can apply these techniques to make this thing better and perform better. So starting off, we have the typical ChatGPT prompt. If you asked any midwit, well, not even midwit, this guy's the stupid guy. If you asked any regular bottom feeder ChatGPT user, they'd probably give you a prompt like classify the following email into ignore, opportunity, or needs attention labels. And then they'd paste in the email, right? So this is our starting point. This is the typical ChatGPT prompt, and this is as far on the IQ scale on the left as you can go. So we're breaking down by component. We're starting off with role. I know for you TikTok brains here, you're probably going to look at this and be like, that's a lot of writing, but can you just pause this video? I'm not going to go over all of it. I think some of you already know some of these components. Role prompting is something that you've definitely done before, but I want to draw attention here to the research results with this little rocket ship to show that it's increasing the accuracy. When you assign it an advantageous role in your role prompting by saying you are an email classification expert trained to be this, it can increase the accuracy of your prompts and the performance of them by 10.3%. And secondly, if you give complementary descriptions of your abilities to further increase accuracy, you can get up to 15 to 25% increase in total. So this is as simple as, here's the example, you are a highly skilled and creative short form content script writer, that is the role, with a knack for crafting engaging, informative, and concise videos. So you add a role and then you give it key qualities like engaging, informative, and concise, and you basically hype it up and tell it, man, you're so amazing at this. So you need to have a role that is strong and tells it that is advantageous to what it's doing. So if you're solving a math problem, you are an expert math teacher. And then you can give it some more examples after that of the key qualities. So takeaways here: select a role that is advantageous for the specific task, e.g. math teacher for math problems, and then enrich the role, I like that word, enrich the role with additional words to highlight how good it is at that task. Super simple, that's role prompting. So this is what we're going to be doing to kind of tie everything together in this video, which is a before and after. So this was the low IQ one, remember this? So this is our starting point. And here we have what happens after we add in the role thing. So you're going to need to pause this as this thing gets bigger. It's kind of hard for me to put the whole prompt on the screen. But the before and after, you're going to have the role prompt here highlighted in, well, low-lighted in black. So you can see what we've changed. So here we've still got the task. Here we've still got the bit before, but it's just now part of a larger prompt. We have the role included as well. You are an experienced email classification assistant that accurately categorizes emails based on their content and potential business impact. Great. So task. Now going back there, that's pretty helpful. This is actually the task. So the thing that most people actually put into ChatGPT or into the prompt is the task itself. So it's basically just telling it what it's going to do. Usually starting with a verb, we want to say generate a this, analyze this, write this, but be descriptive as possible while also keeping it brief. So an example here is generate engaging and casual outreach messages for users looking to promote their services in the dental industry, especially focusing on the integration of AI tools to scale businesses. Your messages should be direct, blah, blah, blah. So it's telling it what it should do. Use a verb, nothing too crazy here. But what I will mention is that this is where, because we're doing these single shot systems where we need to insert values, because it's going to have our prompt written, and then we need to be throwing different, like in this case, the email content is the variable that we need to put in this place. So in this case, you see that I have the dental industry as the niche, and the pink one here, which is the integration of AI tools, as the offer. This is from an earlier video that I've done. Within the task is where you can insert the variables that are going to be used throughout the system. So if you go back a little bit, we have the email content variable, and you can see here that it's already become part of the task. So classify the da-da-da-da-da. Here's the variable-based input that we want. Then we have the technique that's associated with the task component, and that is chain of thought prompting. This is something that's fairly common now and pretty widely known. It involves telling the model to think step by step without instructions, or better yet, you can provide it with step-by-step instructions for it to work through each time, which is my kind of preferred way of doing it. So here's the example. We take the script writer example as well, and in this case, if you just give it a list of 6 points, so hook the viewer in, briefly explain, provide 1, 2 fascinating facts, describe. So we're giving it step-by-step instructions on how it should perform the task. And the research results of chain of thought prompting being incorporated into your prompts is a 10% accuracy boost on simple problems. And that's like very, very simple problems, like solve this or 4 + 2 = blah, blah, blah. But 90% accuracy on complex multi-step problems, which is likely what many of you are going to be dealing with the systems that you're trying to build. So 90% accuracy boost is pretty insane. And considering you only have to write up a little list of what it should do, chain of thought prompting is something you should really incorporate. Key takeaway here: the more complex the problem, the more dramatic the improvement in using chain of thought prompting. So that's the task. If we go across, now you see that we've included a chain of thought component to the task. So the old one, which was just the ChatGPT low IQ person, is this, and we've added on the role prompt, and we've also added in a section for how it should approach a task, a step-by-step chain of thought prompting method that we've incorporated. Next, we have the specific section, which is below the task, and this is really an addition to the task. So to not get it too bloated on the task component, you can then have important bullet points that reiterate more instructions or important notes regarding the execution of the task. So using the example of the outreach message generator prompt, examples of specifics for this might be: each message should have an intro, body, and outro with a tone that's informal. Use placeholders like this. So it's kind of a list of additional points that, outside of just the core part of the task, you can give additional kind of bullet points, which is pretty handy when you're modifying the prompt, when you're editing it. If you think it's not doing something correctly, you can just easily add another bullet point on. So this is kind of where I will do most of my modification when I'm writing my prompts. And the technique associated with specifics is called emotion prompt. And this refers to adding short phrases containing emotional stimuli, right? To enhance the prompt performance. So here's the research results. Emotional stimuli can be things like: this is very important to my career. This task is vital to my career, and I really value your thoughtful analysis. This continues on from role prompting a bit, because you're kind of continuing to hype this thing up and say, look, like I really appreciate how good you are at this thing, and you being part of this business and what we're doing is so important, and it has massive implications on myself and my business and also on society as a whole. The more you can hype it up and tell it that its task is like, the world is going to fall apart if it doesn't do this thing right, the better the performance you can get out of it. So the research results here, adding emotional stimuli, which can be as short as these two little phrases here. This is very important to my career, and this is vital to my career, blah, blah, blah. These little lines here increased 8% on simple tasks and 115% on complex tasks compared to zero-shot prompting. So huge increase on complex tasks, which is likely what you're going to be building your prompts for anyway. And it also enhanced the truthfulness and informativeness of LLM outputs by an average of 19 and 12% respectively. So not only are you getting the increase in accuracy, as in is this thing getting the right output and the right response, but also it's more truthful and informative, which is, fluffy things, but being more truthful and informative is probably a good thing, right? So the ROI of just adding a few of these words for the performance of your prompt is ridiculous. There's no reason you shouldn't be throwing in a couple of these emotional kind of lines, this is very important. Like, this is such a key thing in the business that you are part of. So the key takeaways here, adding simple phrases like these can encourage the model to engage in more thorough and deliberate processing, which is especially beneficial for your complex tasks that require more careful thought and analysis. So how does this actually add into our prompt? We have it below the task section here. I can zoom in, and we have the specifics. This task is critical to the success of our business. If the email contains blah, 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 and it's just a list of additional instructions, and we can throw in that emotion prompt in there as well. So that's specifics. You can see it's sort of coming together here. Then we jump into context. This is kind of self-explanatory, but just giving the model a better idea of the environment in which it's operating in and why can be helpful to increase performance. And this also gives us an opportunity to really further instill the role prompting that we did at the start and also the emotion prompting that we've done in the specifics. So an example here from our email classification system could be, our company provides AI solutions to businesses across various industries, but a context about who the business is. We receive a high volume of emails from potential clients through our website contact form. Your role, again, role prompting, we're incorporating, again, reminding it of the role that it has, is classifying these emails as essential emotion prompt for our sales team to prioritize their efforts and respond to inquiries in a timely manner by accurately identifying emotion prompt again, etc. So you can read the rest of that, but we're heading up with a role prompt again. We're giving it context on the system that it belongs to. And here's my general notes. I'm getting ahead of myself, but general notes for context is to provide context on the business, including the types of customers, types of services, products, values, etc. Then you can provide context on the system that it is part of. As you can see here, we're saying this is part of our sales process and we get a lot of emails. And then you can provide a little bit of context on the importance of the task and the impact on the business. So you directly contribute to the growth and success of our company. Therefore, we greatly value your careful consideration and attention to clarification. So it's just kind of reiterating a lot of the stuff that we've done in the role and also in the specific section as well. Here's the before and after. We've added this context section down the bottom, not rocket science. The example section, kind of self-explanatory, but we want to give examples to the model on how it should perform and how it should be replying to it. So you give an input-output pairs is what you usually refers to them as. And this goes on to the technique of a few-shot prompting, single-shot or one-shot prompting. And in this case, we're going to be talking about few-shot prompting because that's giving more than one example. So I'll give you a little bit of a look into the research results here. Now, all of these research results are attached to scientific papers that I've gone through and found and put in here for you. So if you want to get access to all of those research papers, I'll put it on a Figma or I'll put it on in the description so you can have a look at the papers themselves. I'm not pulling these out of my ass. These are coming from papers where people have actually studied these things. So, and this graph here shows the effect of adding these input-output examples on the performance and accuracy of the prompt. So zero-shot prompting is on the far left. We have 10% accuracy for these 175 billion parameters version of GPT-3. As soon as you add one example to this, it jumps up from 10 to nearly 50 to 45% accuracy. And then we get sort of a diminishing returns as we continue to increase up to, here is 10 examples. So this is 10 input-output pairs. So A, QA, 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 one QA, and one example of an input and an output. That is a shot. With a one-shot prompt, we got a 45% accuracy. And as we got up to 10, we got a 60% and kind of flattened off after there. So the research results is that GPT-3, 175 billion parameters, achieved an average 14.4% improvement over its zero-shot accuracy of 57.4 when using 32 examples per task. So that's way up here and using a lot of them, and it kind of crept its way up. But for us, the key takeaways is that providing just a few examples, literally going from 0 examples to 1, massively increases the performance compared to zero-shot prompting when it doesn't have any examples. So accuracy scales with the number of examples, but it shows diminishing returns. Most of the gains can be achieved between 10 to 32 well-crafted examples. And personally, I go for like 3 to 5. I don't really want to be sitting there all day writing all these examples. And the more examples you give, the more tokens you're putting in the input of your prompt. And therefore, the more expensive it is every time you call that prompt. So if it's part of this email classification system and we have 32 examples, we're going to have 32 examples worth of context and token usage in our automation. And that means every single time an email comes in, it's going to be sending off huge amounts of tokens as part of the input. And we're going to be charged on those input tokens as well. So 10 to 32 is the sweet spot according to this paper. Just do 3 to 5. It does the job enough, and at least in my experience and the stuff that we do at Morningside as well. So a little bit more on examples. I won't bore you too much here, but this is kind of the key part here, that these guys doing these papers and doing the research, they documented roughly predictable trends in scaling and performance without using fine tuning. So by giving examples, you are kind of in prompt fine tuning these models. When people talk about fine tuning and everyone thinks that you need to do it, I personally, for me and my development company, we build these AI solutions for businesses, and we've never had to use fine tuning because we're actually good at prompt engineering. And there's only a very limited number of use cases where fine tuning actually gives you an advantage. And that's just from our experience. So if you want to avoid doing the messy stuff of data collection and fine tuning and all that crap, just get good at prompting, get good at writing these examples, and you can achieve the roughly similar performance increases as fine tuning without fine tuning. So this graph here shows an interesting bit of data that I do want to share. It's getting a little bit techy, but this graph on the right here shows a significant increase in performance from 0 shot, which is the blue, to few shot completion. So if you add in some examples, you're going to jump up from, I think it was 42 up to nearly 55, 60. A big jump immediately just by adding a few examples. But interestingly, the gold labels here, so these orange pillars, these orange bars, that refers to the tests done where the labels were correct. So maybe if the email classification was, here's the email, here's the classification, and we gave it correct examples, the performance increase within the study was shown regardless of whether those labels were correct. So this tells us something interesting, that the LLM is not strictly learning new information. So by giving it few shot examples that have the correct labels, it's not necessarily learning that information. It's actually just learning from the format and structure, and that helps to increase the accuracy of the outputs overall. The accuracy of the label itself does not actually appear to matter too much on the overall performance. So you can have incorrect labels and it's still going to perform just as well because you've given it some examples on how it should respond. So long story short, throwing in 3 to 5 examples is going to greatly increase the accuracy and the performance of your prompts. And it also should be thought of more as teaching it how to structure the output. So this is very important. If you're not getting the structure you want and it's throwing in a whole bunch of other rubbish like, oh, well, this is the answer to the question. If you just give it a few examples of how it should respond, it's going to look very closely at that and it's going to perform much better for you. So think of it as fine-tuning of the style, the tone, and the length and the structure of the output. And I think this is something that a lot of people miss out on when they don't add these things in, because it's so important. If you just want it to give you one word and you kind of try to tell it in the task, say, just give one word responses. Sure, it might listen to it, but if you give 5 examples of input and then just the one word output, like in our case, opportunity or needs attention or ignore, these labels for our email classification system, it's going to perform so much better. So here's a before and after. Again, we're getting a little bit small here, so I'll allow you to pause this on screen as you wish. But we've given it a couple examples. You can see how I've done it here. In this case, it's email label. I usually tend to go for a Q and A. That's usually my go-to strategy, or input output. But that's basically how we do it. We go example 1. We give the QA and then we give a space, example 2. Sometimes you don't even need to put these on. You can just leave it as that and it sort of figures it out. But that's few shot prompting and examples and how we've compared them. Now getting onto the final bit, stick with me because you are learning some very good stuff here. The notes section is the final part, and this is our last chance to remind the LLM of key aspects of the task and add any final details or tweaks. This is something that you'll end up using a lot as you're actually doing the prompt engineering workflow. In the list, I usually end up having things like output formatting notes, like you should put your output in X format, or do not do X. Like if it's doing something as I do a test, this is kind of where I'm iterating on the prompt. So if it gives me an output and it has doing something way wrong, I'll just say at the bottom, at the note section, say, do not do X, or you are not supposed to do this, never include it in your output. These kind of things are very easy to slap onto the note section at the bottom. Small tone tweaks, reminders of key points from the task or specifics is really what I use the note section for. And as I say here, it usually starts out quite skinny, because if you do all the prompting correctly, you'll have, well, I've got nothing else to say in the prompt. I've got nothing else to say at this bottom section. And then you give it a spin, you throw some inputs at it, and it starts doing some wacky stuff. And you come back and go, oh, well, let's just remind it of some things I've said earlier on. And you start to add this list of things to the notes. Now, don't let it become too long, because it's going to start to sort of water it down. You'll notice that it'll start forgetting earlier notes if you put too many notes in. But less is more here. And if it's really just to tweak these outputs to get the right kind of responses. without refactoring the whole thing and restructuring how you did the task in the specific. So it's just kind of a lazy way of tacking things on to just get it nudged towards where you want it to go. Now we have the notes section, and it's based off the lost in the middle effect, which is from another scientific research paper. And this lost in the middle effect is most famous kind of for this graph here, which shows that language models perform best when relevant information is at the very beginning, primacy, I'm learning new stuff here as well, or end, recency of the input context. So performance significantly worsens when the critical information is in the middle of a long context, and this effect occurs even when the models are designed for long input sequences. So yes, GPT-4 32K back in the day was designed for 32,000 tokens, but it didn't really listen to anything in the middle. Luckily, the models that we work with now are much better at retrieving information over large contexts, but you should still keep this in mind because it still seems to apply. And this is why the notes section is at the end. This little graph here basically shows you that when you place the information at the start, the accuracy is higher, and when you place it in the middle, the accuracy is lower, and when you place it at the end, the accuracy is higher, but not as high as the start. So it really listens to the stuff at the start. So the role prompt, it takes it very seriously, and that's why we have our task up the top as well. That's why we have the context in the middle, because it's not as important. So see, you're starting to knit together all this information and understand how all these different techniques knit in together. So the way that I've structured this prompt and the way my team have structured it, I'm only really retelling you what we do at Morningside. By adding these things all in together, you see how it starts to fit together into a proper strategy and not just throwing stuff at the wall and having some kind of prompt formula. It's actually based off the science, and everyone loves to talk about science these days. So that is lost in the middle. I think I have a little bit more here. The research results, of course, that you've been anxiously waiting for is that when a relevant document is at the beginning or the end of a context, GPT 3.5 Turbo achieves around 75% accuracy on a QA task, an increase of 20 to 25% compared to when the document was placed in the middle. So the key takeaways from this is instructions given at the start and the end of the prompt are listened to by the LLM far more than anything in the middle. For this reason, the notes section is a handy place to append reminders for anything that happened in the task or the specifics that if you notice it maybe isn't listening to and you need to reiterate. But be aware that increasing the context length alone does not ensure better performance. Still having less context or fluff will mean the remaining instructions are more likely to be followed. So while lost in the middle refers to, okay, where should we structure the prompt to include the right information to be listened to? What's the most important thing in the prompt and where should we put it? Yes, that does that. But it also gives us information on how we should try to keep our prompt as short as possible, because it's over longer context periods that these things start to get bad. So the shorter you can keep the prompt in general, it could listen to the whole thing very, very well. But as soon as you've really made it bloated, it's going to be losing some of that stuff in the middle. So less is more, and having less fluff is always going to make your prompts perform better. So here you can see in the notes section, please provide the email classification label and only the label as your response. So again, reiterating the format we want the output to be in. Do not include any personal information in your response. If you're unsure, err on the side of caution and assign the needs attention label. So little reminders as we've gone through and we tweak in this email classification prompt, you will add those things in over time. So getting back to this little diagram here, we have the role prompting covered off. You know how to use that technique is tell it a role and tell it how good it is at that role. Chain of thought, give it a list of things that it should do and how it should break down the task. Motion prompt, tell it how good it is, tell it how important everything is that it's doing. Few shot prompting, give it examples that it knows the kind of output format you want. Lost in the middle, kind of tells you how to structure everything and where to put the right information. And you can add on a couple little things at the bottom so that it really listens to them at the end. And finally, here we have markdown formatting. Man, I'm talking at a mile a minute here. And I'm getting really hot. Anyway, markdown formatting is kind of the final piece of this puzzle to tie it all together. And I learned this from my CTO, Spencer. He put me onto this technique and I use it all the time now. So markdown formatting is a way that we can structure our prompts for both our sake, so that it's more readable. Because when you write these large prompts, it can get a little bit messy and there's a lot of stuff going on. So for our sake, it allows us to structure the prompt better, but also it allows the LLM to understand the structure a little bit better as well. While I don't have any research to back that up, my only data on why we should be doing this and why it may perform better is because you can see over here, someone managed to extract out the system prompt from DALL-E 3 within ChatGPT, and OpenAI themselves are actually using this markdown formatting. So you can see a pound symbol here and then tools. So these are markdown headings, as we're going to go into in a second. But if OpenAI is using it to train their systems and to prompt their own systems, we should probably be using it as well, which is kind of why we're doing it here. So basically, markdown gives us a few new tools to structure. You may notice if you're writing a prompt You just got plain text. You don't have any method to signal what a heading would look like or what bold would look like. But Markdown gives us those techniques. So we have headings. Heading 1 is the largest, heading 2 is the second largest, heading 3 is the third largest. So you have now different layers of headings. So you can have like role, task, all these in the heading 1. So just H1 is a pound symbol and then a space and then whatever you want after it, which you'll see in a second. But then if you have little subsets or subsections like examples header, and then you want example 1, you can have example 1 as a heading 3 or a heading 2. So you have different layers of heading and importance. You also have bolds, italics, underlines, lists, horizontal rules, and more. So if you want to jump into the fancy stuff, I'll teach you the basics here of Markdown, but you can also do these other things. I'm not sure what the effectiveness is of bolds and italics and stuff, but I tend to just use the headings as a structure tool. So key takeaways on Markdown formatting is use these H1 tags, single pound symbol, to mark each of the components for your prompt. And then you can use the H2 or 3 tags or even bolds and stuff to sort of add additional structure to other parts of it. So here's an example of how you should add it in. Heading 1 role, heading 1 task, specifics, context. And then within context, I've added in here, look, you might want to break the context into subsections of, okay, let's use the heading 2 and go about the business, about our system. So you don't need to do that all the time, but this is how you can start to use other types of headings in like H2 or H3 tags to split up some of the other subsections under each of your main headings. And then again, examples, we can have an example 1 as a heading 3 and give the examples and the notes. So that's roughly, and then you come in here and obviously add you are a generate you get what I'm doing. You get what I'm saying. And so what this all looks like when we tie it together, we now have our completed prompt, which this is the before. Remember, this is where we started. This is the stupid guy who doesn't know how to prompt. This is what we started with, and this is what we have after when we apply all of these techniques. Now, this is a little bit overkill for an email classification system, but what I want to show you is that this is how you would apply it to a simple task like this. So we have the role that's wrapped in the H1 tag. We have H1 tag here, etc. And we have all of these different components: role, task, specifics, context, examples, and notes, all integrating the techniques that we've been over in this video. And now stacking up all of the increases in accuracy that we get from these different techniques, we can see that, well, we don't know how much Markdown formatting gives us, but the total is potentially above 300% increase in accuracy. Then the final step here is we can add up all of the different increases and the performance increases that we get from these techniques, and we can sum it up to a 300% or more increase in performance. So you can listen to me, or you can just ignore it, or you can use these place by place, wherever you think you need it. But considering emotion prompting is literally just a few words saying you're the best and this is really important to me, and role prompting is like 1 or 2 lines, and lost in the middle is really just more of an understanding of where to put the right information in your prompt. You've now got a toolkit, and going back to this guy over here, look at this guy. He's got a toolkit. He understands the science. He understands from research papers at why these things work the way they do. And because he has this deeper understanding of what makes LLMs do the right things that they want them to do, he's better able to perform, and as you can see, he is on the upper end of the spectrum here. So this is the guy that you should be now. All you need to do is take these and apply it, and you'll start to see and connect them. Okay, so lost in the middle. That's not doing what I want. Maybe I need to change the stuff at the start and the end. Okay, it's giving me the wrong structure and style. Okay, maybe I give some more few short examples of how it should be responding, and I take my time and I write them carefully, and I tell them the kind of style and structure of the response that I want. It's really not rocket science, and people have already done the hard work by doing the research to get these kind of results. So to wrap up this video, I've given, actually we have a considerations page here. Context, length, and costs, as I mentioned earlier, for high volume tasks, like this example of an email classification system. I guess it's not too high volume, but if this thing is doing like 50, 100 reps a day, it's really being put through the ringer, and there's a lot of volume going through the task that you're building. You need to focus on making that prompt as short and succinct as possible, because every time you run it, you are charged for the input and the output tokens. So while you may only be outputting a label in this case of just needs work on new opportunity or needs attention or ignore, you're also charged for the input tokens as well. So all the prompt that you put in, you're going to be charged for, plus the inserted variables as well. So you've got the prompt, then you're inserting the email context, you're getting all of that information and sending that over, you're going to get charged on that. So keep in mind that if you're doing a lot of volume, try to use a cheaper model as we're going into next, but also keep the prompt shorter as well. The choice of model is important as well. Better prompt engineering and the skills that I've just taught you on this. Going back to this guy here, he has better prompt engineering skills and can get better performance out of cheaper models. This guy doesn't have the skills, so he relies on the more expensive and slower models, which is not good for the client, to get the performance that he needs, because he doesn't have the skills to get it to do what he wants. And that brings me back to this choice of model point, which is where possible, you need to use your skills and use your advantage to bend the cheapest and fastest model to execute the task successfully. So 3.5 Turbo is basically free. Like this thing, OpenAI has made that so cheap. And whenever you're watching this video, it might be different, but the cheapest, fastest model should be your go-to. And if you can't get it working there, then you can go up. But you have the skills now. If it has high volume and requires fast responses, this is when your skills will shine, because you can create prompts that do and perform fast and cheap. Then we have the temperature and other model settings. If you're doing creative writing, ideation, etc., then test higher levels, so 0.5 to 1. But anything else, if you're putting systems like this, whereas classification or AI is kind of doing a fixed piece of the puzzle, you want it to be on 0. Just have that. We're trying to fight against the inconsistency and natural randomness of these models. And in order to do that, we need to set that temperature to 0. And that's going to make the system a lot more consistent. So 0 is what I typically use for basically anything apart from creative writing kind of script writing prompts. The other model settings like frequency penalty and top P are not needed in my experience. Just play around with the temperature. That's what we need to worry about. What I'm going to jump to now is actually having a chat with my CTO, Spencer. And he's going to share what we've done at Morningside on one of our projects where we had to go from GPT-4, which was doing the job great, and then the client wanted to change to GPT 3.5 Turbo to save money. And then we had to kind of rebuild everything in order to get it working. So we're going to jump to that, and you get to hear from Spencer, again, a lot smarter than me. And a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing actually came from what he's learned on the job and what he does at Morningside. So everyone, if you haven't met Spencer already, this is Spencer, my CTO. He's a lot smarter than I, so I'm bringing him on to chip into this prompt engineering video just briefly, because a lot of the stuff that I've just told you about has actually come from his big brain here. He's been sharing a lot of the research papers, particularly within our Slack across the company, so we're all on the same page. So Spencer, I wanted to bring you on here particularly because we've been working with one of our biggest clients ever to date, and I want to particularly focus on how I was talking in this video about the prompt engineering skills, allowing you to get more out of lesser and cheaper models, and how we've had to switch from a GPT-4 based SaaS that we built over to a GPT 3.5 Turbo, and the difficulties in transitioning that. So if you just want to give any notes on the presentation prior, but also specifically on getting more out of these lesser models, really, which is what I'm trying to teach people in this video.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I usually like to try and break things down. So when you're going through these paths, the key is that you obviously want to use the cheaper models first. So 3.5 comes first to mind. In this case, specifically for this client, there's a lot of complex kind of information that they were synthesizing out of it. So we made the decision to start off with GPT-4 to make sure that we were getting the responses that we wanted. Now, once it kind of got closer to release there, we realized that the cost that was associated with running these models is going to be prohibitive. So we had to kind of take that transition now and gauge down to 3.5. So whenever I'm doing that specific task, the key one that I'm looking at is, yes, prompt engineering 1. And then 2 is scope reduction. GPT-4 is really good at a bunch of different things and understanding kind of the hidden context that's in the words that you're doing. 3.5 is much less so. So you almost want to break it down into smaller kind of component-sized chunks for the task, and then use those as kind of contributive to get the same results as you would with 4. So that was the steps that we're taking in this particular project. Another good tactic to use as well, and one that I would highly recommend, is using GPT-4 first, and then taking the input and output pairings as training data to fine tune a 3.5 model as well. Because we found that that's really helpful for getting your costs down, but keeping up that GPT-4 like quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've kind of just bashed fine tuning earlier in this video because I say it's unnecessary in almost every case. I mean, using few shot examples is essentially a way of fine tuning via prompting. So if you just give a few shot examples of GPT-4 outputs or human written outputs, would that not do a lot in terms of getting more towards the outputs that you're looking for?
Yeah, 100%. And you're completely right on that one. Fine tuning for, I would say, a vast amount of use cases isn't really necessary. You can get, I would say, 90, even 95% of the way with just good old fashioned prompt engineering and few shot prompting here. With few shot prompting, there's a interesting paper that came out last year. and I can't remember the specific name of it, but it talked about the decision boundary. So there's an important uh, kind of lesson to learn on that, is that for the few shot prompts that you're giving, the important part is to give ones that are confusing to the model itself. So the ones that you notice that it's getting wrong consistently, if you actually categorize those and take those in and take the 1 to 5 hardest examples that you get, and then
Mhm.
use those as the as the examples in there, you'll actually get a lot better results coming out of your model too.
Well, that's I'm learning something on this call and in this video as well, because I mean, I'd always thrown in my few short examples of kind of like the most common ones. You might chuck a curveball in there as well, but I just kind of put the 3 to 5 most common ones. But knowing that we should try to figure out when it's stuffing up and then put those on as examples is great. So any other notes you have on the content load, just taking a look at the presentation, but the markdown formatting aspect, any other techniques? I know motion prompt was a new one for me. So anything that you got there?
Yeah, Markdown is one that we use extensively. I'm a huge nerd, so I like writing in Markdown anyways, just because most of the notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, if there's any other data nerds out there like myself, so it's rather consistent, familiar for myself.
Is there any data or papers that you've seen with the markdown base? Because in the presentation just before, I was like, look, I can't find any research papers, but I'm sure Spencer's probably got one. But it's more like if OpenAI is using it, you'd be pretty stupid not to do it. And even just functionally for us as we're writing these prompts, it's so much more useful to at least have some kind of structure to it. So for purely on our side, you'd use it regardless, just to make it easier on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely remember reading, I think, at least a couple of papers about structured inputs and Markdown format. And there's other ones as well that you can use. But even intuitively. So when they're doing the fine tuning in terms of reinforcement learning with human feedback, RLHF, what they're doing is they're actually providing markdown based formatting, and that's how they're structuring these prompts that they're giving to it in order to fine tune it. So intuitively, of course, if it's seen it more, it's going to do better when it sees more of the same that it's been trained off of. The cool part about using Markdown as well is you get to actually use semantic information. So if you're writing a Word document, if you want to put bold in there, if you want to put something in italics, titles, subtitles, all of these things, it makes it into a much more structured format. And that nuance comes through on the other side to be able to, make better prompts to get better outputs. The other one that I would suggest as well is they're like small little things. So being very encouraging towards an LLM can help. So I usually start off with, you're a world-class X. And you are an absolute star at doing this. It seems a little bit ridiculous at the time that I'm giving this positive feedback to a machine, but very helpful. The other one's telling the model to take a deep breath and to think it through step by step before responding. I'm 100% serious. It's been proven to actually increase the quality of your responses. And then
that also doubles as a great one when your significant other is angry. Usually that does miracles.
Yeah, I would not suggest that as a married man, I'll be honest.
Well, closely followed the second by calm down. Yeah. Anyway. It's good that you mentioned that. Sorry, that the hype in the model up. I've talked about this just earlier in the video. Is that look, this emotion prompt thing where you can get, I think, 115% increase in your accuracy. It's just by being like, wow, firstly in the role prompting, being like, wow, you are like the best at this, and then enriching it with additional words to reinforce like how good it is at that task. And then the other guy, what was the other thing? Slipped my mind. Anyway, back to what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's actually funny as well, persona-based thing. So if you not only tell it it's a world-class X, if you actually use names of specific people, especially people who have written over the internet, or if you say you are Albert Einstein, it will actually come out with higher quality outputs that are very much in the style of writing the person that you're talking about. I use it for programming personalities. So Theo, he does the T3 stack. And I'll constantly say, "You're Theo, show me how to refactor my code like Theo would," and that actually goes really, really well. And then the other kind of last one in here is on the positivity route, but not using negative feedback for it. So a lot of the time, your first impulse is going to be like, "Stop doing this! Don't do this! Don't do that." If you instead focus on "do this" or "do that," the negative connotated words actually are associated with worse outcomes than positively framed ones.
Yeah, it's just interesting because in the research for this, and I was trying to put together, okay, like negative prompting, is this a real thing? It seems like the consensus is that it doesn't actually do much. But I have anecdotal evidence to the contrary, which is if it's doing something incorrectly, I'll usually just put at the very bottom in the notes section, just never do this in your output, and it usually tends to work. So I mean, there's both sides there. It works for me sometimes, but it's probably something a lack of my skills as well, that I should be doing it further up. But yeah, there's some really good things there. I think if you guys can, as Spencer said, that's another gem that I'll be incorporating into my prompting, is giving it a name, giving the role a name, and that's something I'd usually just say, you're an expert, this. But if you have an example of a real person or that someone that the internet would have had information about, you can throw that in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think those are the big top line ones for me, at least.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Again, this is why I brought Spencer on, because even I've learned something here. But yeah, we can jump back to the video. Thank you, Spencer.
Thanks so much, Liam.
So I hope that's drilled in the importance of prompt engineering and being able to use these cheaper and faster models to achieve the outcomes that your clients want. Otherwise, you're not going to make any money. But going back to this, I just want to say, look, everything that I've just taught you here can be applied to all these different types of systems. And what I want to leave you off with at the end of this is examples of things. So an AI agent is like GPTs are a good example of this, or the building AI agents on my own platform and my own software. Agentive, if you want to check it out, we're only on waitlist at the moment, so you can check that out in the description. But Agentive allows you to build AI agents, as does the GPT builder on the ChatGPT site. But what we want to do if we modify this prompt formula for this use case of AI agents is to modify it to include how to use the knowledge, how to use the tools in your answer. Then you can provide examples of response styles and tone. So you can pause that, take a look, see. But here, most important things to point out is that I've added in, so you can see role, task, specifics, and then tools. So the tools here, if you are adding custom tools into your GPTs or into your AI agents, you can add a little section using the same kind of format, right? We have a heading and say you have 2 tools to use, One, I like to include the knowledge base. If I've added any knowledge to my AI agent, I'll tell it, use the knowledge base, because that's how it's working. They use it as a knowledge base tool. They just don't really tell you that it's a tool. So you construct it. Knowledge base is one of the tools you have. You can use it when you're answering AI business related questions. And number 2 is a cosine similarity tool. It could be your other tool that's calling relevance or something. But tell it how to use each of the tools that's involved. And then examples of, okay, here's a question someone asked the agent. Here's how you should respond, etc. So not rocket science. You guys can use that. But that's how I adapt this formula to do AI agent prompts, and it works really well. Next is voice agents. You need to modify the prompt formula to include a script outline if necessary. So SynthFlow, Blad AI, Air, all these things that are popping off right now. You can modify the same prompt template to do really good voice agents for you. So role, task, but in the task here, we're giving it an outline of how it should talk and the steps involved. Then we have the specifics. Then we have context about the business. This is an example for a restaurant. Just giving a bit of context on the restaurant there. Then we have examples of how it should respond to the most common questions. As I said before, you can also come in here and add in a script section and add in like a rough outline of how the script would go, but I've kind of included that in this section here from a high level at least. So voice agents, same sort of thing, modify it to do the job. Then we have AI automations, which can be using Zapier, Make, Airtable. Airtable now has AI, which is cool. But you can create powerful AI tasks in businesses that can be relied upon to handle thousands of operations a month. What we just built in the email classifier is an example of an automation, so I don't really need to go over this, but here's another example. At the end here, you can see, sometimes I like to throw this in, is after I've given examples, at the bottom, I'll go Q, and then I'll put the constraint in, or in this case, the variable in again, and then I'll leave the A open, I'll put a space, and then it's just going to kind of autofill that, and it's another technique you can use to get it to only output the exact kind of output style that you want, so feel free to use that as you need. AI tools, you may not know what I mean by tools, but basically we can set up a bunch of inputs, say, okay, niche, offer, and then we can insert that into a pre-written prompt, and then that's going to be allowed to connect to either GPTs, or you can build it on a landing page, and it can be used to speed up workflows. So there's so many different ways that you can use it. Here's an example again. You can pause that. This is an example. Here you can see I'm inserting the variables. We have lots of input-output pairs. And then I'm screaming at the end here because it wasn't doing what I wanted. So yeah, take those. I'll leave a link to the presentation down on, I think it'll be on my school community. So you just find this video. There'll be a resource for this thing in the YouTube tab, and you can find this video, pull this up, and then use this as you wish. So I want to bring you back to this. Here's a lollipop because you get a lollipop for now completing this course, and you are now a successful and a genius level. I'm not even sure what this guy's his name is supposed to be, but he looks like a genius to me. He looks like a Jedi or something cool. So you are now this guy, and you didn't end up being stuck in this mid-wit territory. So here's your little lollipop, and I'm proud of you for getting through this, because the skills that I just taught you, as I say, affect every different thing you're trying to sell in this AI space. If you don't have this nailed, you're not going to be able to build things, and you're not going to create value for your clients, because you're going to have to use, even if you're kind of okay, but you can't get the cheaper model to do what you need it to do, then you're not going to be able to succeed long term. And I mean, you put yourself up. If someone was offering the same AI service and you said, hey, look, it's going to cost you this much a month, and it's going to take 10 seconds to respond. And some other guy goes, okay, it's going to cost you 1/10 of that, and it's going to take a quarter of the time. Who's going to win there? So as much PvP, there's not much PvP going on in the space right now, because there's very few people selling AI solutions as agencies. So we're still very early to it. But over time, if you don't have these skills, you're going to get wiped out by people who do. And yeah, keep in mind, there's so much potential to be squeezed out of these prompts and out of these models if you just apply these techniques. So every 300% increase. I'm going to be making a couple more of these style videos. If you did like this, if you like me being a lot more no bullshit and just telling you how it is, then let me know in the comments, because I much prefer doing these kind of videos, even though I'm now getting super hot and sweaty and my cat's here. But I've liked making this personally. It's a lot more fun than my normal videos where yeah, you get the idea. If you've enjoyed, please let me know down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm probably going to have a couple more videos like this on core things that I think you need to understand, because if you don't learn this, then you can't use my SaaS and I can't make money. So I'm very selfishly teaching you this stuff so that one day you can use my SaaS and I can sell my SaaS for hundreds of millions of dollars. So forgive me for being selfish, but you get to win along the way. But yeah, see you in the next one.